Welcome everyone. Thrilled to be here with Nalini Prasad from BluShark Digital. Maddy Martin here from Smith.ai. We are a virtual receptionist and website chat service for small businesses, but mostly law firms. So about 60% now I think are solo small law firms. And we obviously play a role in lead conversion. We do appointment scheduling, intake. We do inbound and outbound calls, website chat, text answering, Facebook Messenger now too. So we are very much a part of the marketing and intake process. And Nalini and I have known each other for a long time, but I'll let her introduce herself and then we'll talk about today's webinar presentation, really more of a discussion with the master herself about really the key things to know when you're approaching organic search and SEO for your business, specifically using law firms as the case here. So if you're not in a law firm, there's still a lot to learn. Absolutely don't go anywhere. But I think lawyers in particular will get a lot out of this because that's where Nalini spends most of her time, if not all of it. So Nalini, take it away, introduce yourself, and then I've got some questions for you.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at BluShark Digital, and we are an agency that's dedicated to mostly law firms, but we do have kind of a subsection of creating SEO products for any kind of service industry. And at the end of the day, you know, anything that has to do with Google, what they're doing, and SEO can be translated to any industry that's having an audience that goes to the internet to find your services. And so we focus on 4 fundamentals. We've got a team that actually was spun out of a law firm themselves. So our founder, Seth Price, is actually the managing partner of a law firm here in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Now the agency BluShark is about 45 millennials, all strong in one townhouse in DC. Because of COVID, we're all working a little remote, but we thrive on creativity and kind of being in the same space and servicing lawyers across the country.
Nice, wonderful. Well, we are so thrilled to have you, and I know I always learn so much from you, Nalini. I really wanted to start off with just, you know, Google search. I think it seems like this behemoth, you know, normally behemoths are slow moving, but it seems like actually the field of organic search does move. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and part of my bio there that I didn't give is I really truly enjoy the technical aspect of SEO, and mostly because a lot of law firms and a lot of folks on here, we're all very A-type personalities. We like competitive industries. Google to me is a puzzle. And so Google is constantly, as its own business, trying to make sure that they can give the best search results to their consumers, right? The searchers. And so they're constantly coming up with ways to improve the way that they learn information about the websites out there and about the different businesses and how they can turn that into, hey, I can help my searcher the most by giving them this perfect match of someone that can help them right now. And so Google about 4 times a year will actually come out with a huge algorithm update. And so the biggest thing to know about Google is that there's this little bot that you're going to hear about a lot. And this bot is the AI learning. It's everything that Google's based on. But 4 times a year, they update the bot. And they teach the bot more information about how to learn the most about the businesses out there. And so it's always changing, always improving, so that you can have the best pizza place when you look up, when you're out of town, that I want pizza in the middle of the night, right?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I just got the best Italian food in Cooperstown, New York, because that's exactly what I searched. So, I mean, but the same principles apply, right? Like your target, your general approach to ranking on a SERP, search engine result page, remains pretty much the same. Is that right?
Correct. So wanting the visibility is the most important. The amount of information that you can give to Google about who you are and why you're the smartest person in the room and should be the person that's the answer for the searcher is what's changing, right? The how, not the what. The what is we always want to be visible because that's how people are going to see us and give us calls.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And, you know, when it comes to sort of the sensibilities and the needs of the small law firm or small professional services business, you know, what do you think is just in your top quick hits list? Like what's really important to keep in mind, maybe even to check weekly or daily?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, everybody knows your website's important. A lot of people will probably talk about social, making sure that your branding is out there and you're in front of the right audience, the people who need you the most. But there's also this big aspect of Google and of SEO known as local SEO. And that is specifically, that has to do with your Google My Business profile, which most of you know as the place where you send people to review you. So even when you're on Google Maps and you're actually looking for how to get somewhere, right? And you see this profile for the business that you're trying to reach, that is your Google My Business profile. Google has spent the most time in the past year coming out with new fields and features and all sorts of things for you as a business to give your consumers more information. But really what they're also doing is making sure that they have more data points to understand how the consumers are engaging with your business on that profile. And so the biggest takeaway I would say, if you don't have access to your Google My Business profile, or you don't have one yet for your small business, that is first and foremost the most important thing that you want to look at. And then you want to look at it daily. You want to see how many people are calling you, how many people are engaging with the information you're putting out there. And it's a learning process. So maybe I put up a post about a community service event that I'm sponsoring this week. And I had a bunch of people click through to my website. And then the next week I talked about a deal that I had going and no one clicked on it. So maybe your audience really likes the engagement of community, right? What are you guys doing, and telling more about your brand and who you are. And so lots of cool things like that can be gained from looking at it every single day.
That makes a lot of sense. And what about like this? We're hearing a lot about the 3-pack. You wrote a great article on our blog, which I'll share in the notes after this. What is the local 3-pack, and how does that affect, how, a law practice ranks on search?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually going to share my screen here just to take folks through really quickly. It's a lot easier to see it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So people should be able to see my screen. You can see Google. Yes, awesome. So we're going to go with my pizza thing. And so if I look up best pizza is what I've typed in, you'll notice that Google automatically wants to fill in near me. And that's, yeah, it's that whole aspect of Google wanting to find the most convenient answer for you too, right? So even if I take near me out, Google is still going to determine where is Nalini sitting. And you'll notice that it's as far as like a blue dot. It actually puts you on the map of where you are. And then the 3 top results that you're going to see on a computer screen or even on a cell phone is what we call that local 3-pack. This is what we're mentioning. And earlier when I mentioned your Google My Business profile, these 3 options, you'll notice if you ever click into one of them, doesn't take you to a website. It actually takes you to a Google My Business profile. So the real importance of actually having one is that's the only way you can actually get into the local 3-pack and be even above the top 10 results. And the most important aspect of this is the visibility, right? Google has chosen to say that if you have this profile and if you give us enough information and consumers are giving you great reviews and they're engaging with your content, then you're somebody I know will be good to my searcher. And so that's the heart of everything with local SEO and the local 3-pack.
Okay, so a couple questions for you, and one that, is sort of unscripted, but I know you can answer it. How many reviews are we looking for as like a small law firm?
That's a good question. And so it's more so about consistency. Everything with Google takes time, and you'll hear if you have talked to an SEO agency and you've said, well, can I get leads next month? Can I get them in 3 months? You're always going to hear it's going to take 6 months. It's going to take 8 to 10 months. And you're like, well, what the heck? Why does it take so long? And it's because Google is looking for people that are dependable. So yes, you may only need 200 reviews to get ahead of your competitor, or 200 pages of content. And so maybe you could go on a spree and you could get all 200 of those reviews in the next month or 2, right? And you could show this huge spike. Hey, look, I did what I needed to do, and now Google will forget about you for the next 5 months. Whereas your competitor, who's slowly adding 10 new reviews every single month, they're being dependable and consistent. That's who Google is going to want to send to their searchers to, because you're not just showing a spike, but you're showing that you are actively a business. You're a real business enough that you can do this every single month, right? And you can hold up to your end of the bargain. So more so than looking at how many you need, it's being consistent. So if you are a small law firm and you only sign maybe 10 cases a month because you take maybe even top dollar cases and you don't do volume, then maybe trying to set a goal of, I need 30% of those people to give me a review, right? Not everyone's going to do it. So I need at least 3 to 5 reviews maybe every single month. If you're high volume, then your number should be 20 a month, right? But keep it consistent. So consistency over quantity, I would say.
Okay, and we're seeing also the default settings here, right? Where it's a 4+ rating, the pizza type restaurant. I mean, does it go into that level of granularity if I search for law firms? Does it understand practice areas, it being Google?
Yes, absolutely. And so I actually have one of these up here in this tab right now. So we'll look at this one, which is actually, theirs is built out pretty well. So if you look up your actual brand name in Google, you'll notice that your Google My Business profile comes up on the right-hand side. All of the information that you have input on the back end is what is being shown here to your consumer. What Maddy's talking about here is this. So you're able to actually choose, hey, what's my category type? And not just say lawyer or law firm, but you can get very specific and say that you're a family law firm or a criminal law firm. And Google's able to say, oh, okay, well, I know that there's niche and this is their practice area and they specialize in it and this is what they're an expert in, right? And so if someone's looking for a car accident attorney and your competitor marks themselves as a lawyer, right, which means they handle all sorts of cases, and you mark yourself as a personal injury lawyer, you are already going to have an upper hand to Google because they know that that's what you specialize in. You'll be able to handle it a little bit better. And then all of the other information here that we can kind of go into, and I can give some tips on what's the most important, things like that. But yeah, it's very important to choose wisely what information you present yourself as to Google and your consumers.
Okay, yeah, this is really fascinating. So what we see here is not just, you know, that they have their address, the map, some photos, perhaps, obviously a link to your website. They have, you know, 5-star reviews from 124 reviewers. One question about the reviews before we move down this listing. Can you ask, you know, more than one of your clients, if it's a multi-client case, to write a unique review? Is that something that you would recommend?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. There's lots of questions around reviews, and it's, you know, hey, I have 2 locations. Can I have the same person leave a review on both of those? That's one good question I get all the time, right? Similar to yours. And you want to be as honest and, you know, as straightforward as you can be. If you can avoid that and still, you know, get the number of reviews you need to be competitive, that's best case. Always go wide hat. If it seems a little shady to you and you have to ask yourself the question of if it's okay, it's probably not. That's usually my advice. And so I would say that, you know, if you have a big client that you have helped and there are multiple folks that you've worked with there in different capacities, I think that's totally fine to have them write about their personal and professional interaction with you as a business from different perspectives, right? That's totally okay. I know that a lot of us, as you know, if I'm high service law firms, I may work with the marketing director and the partner at the firm, and they've both worked with me in a very different capacity, and they can both leave a review, right? Because they are both using our services, even if they're one client. So that kind of speaks to what your question there directly was. But you want to make sure that you're not getting all, if you only have 3 reviews on your Google My Business, you don't want them all from the same place, right? So
Absolutely
yeah.
not.
Again, it depends on how many do you actually have on your profile and all that good stuff. But yeah, reviews are really cool. And one of the things while we're on reviews that I can talk about that I really like is, you know, numbers are great. And one of the things that Google came out with back in February this year, and I don't know that a lot of people actually look at this on their own, but if you click here on all of the reviews, Google came out with this filtering system where they now have words that are commonly used in your reviews. And so as long as a word is used more than 3 times and is a word that is searched a lot, according to Google, right, it's an actual buzzword, they've created these category filters where you can actually click on them. And so you can say, you know, someone's talking about legal advice, 6 different reviews will talk about legal advice. Right? This is great from the consumer side of things, because if I wanted to hear about, are they honest or are they understanding or whatever it may be, I can click and read just those reviews. But what I care more about is the fact that Google is associating these words with your brand. And so this is a work in progress in terms of these are the things that are important to them. This is how they want to be seen. Some firms will try extra hard, and when they're getting, let's see if this one has them, and when they're getting reviews from someone, to have them actually put the practice area that they help them with. And so when we look here as an example, workers' compensation is actually a keyword that is now associated with this firm in this location. If someone were to stand in Raleigh and say, hey, I need a workers' comp lawyer, Google knows you've actually helped 13 individuals with that, right? So that's a good way to look at if Google has put forth some new feature where they are itemizing things, that means it's information they know. And that's information that's going to help them determine if you're the best for their searcher. So one of the takeaways I would say here is a lot of times people will send a link to your consumer and say, hey, you know, it was great working with you. Would you mind leaving me a review? You kind of leave people hanging there. And if you've ever been in their shoes and maybe bought a car or, you know, went to a restaurant, someone asked you to leave a review, sometimes you're like, wow, I could give stars. I know how I felt about it, but I don't really know what to write to make it a lengthy response.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've heard that has been really cool and I think has helped a lot of folks is giving people at least 1 to 2 questions. So simply saying, you know, what service did I help you with, or what did I help you with? And what was your favorite interaction with me? What was your favorite moment working with me? And when you say that, all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, I know what 3 sentences I would write. So prompting folks, I would say that is a huge take. Yeah, is making sure that you can help direct the words and the type of information that's here presented to other consumers. And that's a huge takeaway that I think if you did that for the next 5 to 10 people you asked for a review, I bet the quality of your review would be better.
That makes a ton of sense. You know, there are a couple of best practices here that we're seeing across the examples that you're sharing, which is that we're also seeing open 24 hours. And that's something that we have directly sort of worked with some of our firms with to say, hey, we noticed that actually does lead to a better sort of outreach rate, first call rate, to say, I am going to contact this particular firm because back in that 3-pack or in the list of results, hours are something that Google shows very prominently. So as a result, if you are looking, if you're looking closed, or you know, pizza place might actually have dinner hours, but if you're looking closed, you are not going to get that person to wait until you're open. It's really important that, you know, that person who closes at 5 p.m., you know, we're approaching, you know, it's 3 o'clock Eastern now for both of us. Okay, Google's letting us know that they close soon. It's really critical that you are open, especially during COVID, during extended, if not 24 hours. So even if your firm cannot support that with your own staff, having an answering service able to answer your calls can lead you to being able to demonstrate those open hours, extending beyond what your, you know, sort of in-house capacity is.
No, absolutely. And one of the things that Google has struggled with in terms of being spammy is exactly this 24 hours. And so people for the past couple of years have gone back and forth and said, should I put my real hours or should I put 24 hours? Sometimes if you put 24 hours, your competitors were going and reporting you and saying, hey, they're not really open 24 hours, even if you did have an answering service. And so Google has had, whenever they have these questions and these issues that they have to deal with, they're in the back of their mind thinking about how can we solve this and what new update can we put into the algorithm update that I mentioned, you know, every couple of months. And so one of the cool things is that recently, and this is just last month, I believe, you have these hours that are your regular hours, but now they have these online service hours. And thanks to COVID, that's absolutely why that's there. And I did put this in my thoughts to talk about today, especially because of the answering services and the chat services. You want to make it very clear that you can answer people, but for some lawyers, they also want to say, hey, at 7 o'clock, I may
Don't expect the attorney to be there.
Yeah, I may be having dinner.
State farm, if it's, you know, a family law practice. I know plenty of divorce attorneys who are not going to put 24 hours on there
because they'll get called.
You call them at 2 a.m. You're not, you know, in business of being a therapist or a policeman. But the thing is, like, I think it also goes into what does the answering service do? If you just have a call center who's taking calls, you're going to get more flags. You're going to get more sort of response that you're not really open. You're just having someone take messages. And what difference is that than voicemail? But if you have someone who's really an intake specialist, scheduling appointments, taking down information and screening you as a lead and saying, yes, you are a good fit for this firm. Yes, we might be interested
The real
in
screening and the questions.
exactly. Then like you're getting real work done. And to me, that is a defensible reason to update your hours, right? If you just have basically glorified voicemail, it's not as legitimate to say that you're open during those hours. You know, are you going to get any sort of work done?
I agree. And I think the cool distinction between this is that people are going to then be able to say, hey, me lawyer, I am not here after 7 o'clock. And you could put 9 to 7
Exactly.
and online service hours, which is really when your intake's still happening. But
Right.
in this search result, you will start to see where it says maybe office closed, but online appointment, like online still available, right?
But still online, exactly. I can imagine the family who's like just got their kids like, in bed, the bath time is over. They've just played the role of teacher and chef and still working a 9-to-5 job. What time are you going to have available to contact a law firm for your elderly parents' estate? It's going to be at 8 p.m. It's going to be 8 a.m. before work, right? So it's really important that you make sure that you're available. So let's talk for a second, though. We've talked a little bit about location. What about all the firms, speaking of COVID, who are considering going virtual?
Yep.
What if you don't have a brick and mortar, or are you putting your law firm at risk by getting rid of your rent?
So that's a perfect segue and exactly where my brain was going too. And so one of the other things that's really cool is that Google came out with during COVID in the last few months is this online appointments to say that you take online appointments, and they're actually working on, we've seen and heard that a couple of different regions in the US have seen this roll out already, but where you may be able to click on a button from this Google My Business and connect through Zoom with the lawyer or with whatever the industry is, a CPA or, a doctor. And so just the way the world has changed, it's amazing. And it's funny because just last summer, just about a year ago, Google was on a rampage and they were just suspending anyone who was in a Regis or a WeWorks or a shared office space, right? And the reason that was happening was, we get it, people were playing the SEO game, and they were getting these Regis, these shared office space locations simply to show up in that local 3-pack. They wanted to target more areas, and it wasn't really where their brick and mortar was. So Google said, you're finding workarounds, we don't like this. But now, a year later, people are getting rid of their brick and mortar, just like you said. People are needing to, maybe if they need a space to meet with people, then it has to be a shared office space or something like that. And Google has to think about that. So we have not seen suspensions for these Regises and WeWorks as heavily in the last couple of months. I'm waiting for the announcement for them to say something like it's actually okay now, because it has to be. In terms of creating a Google My Business, you have to put a physical address in order to create it, right? To get it verified. But you can also select not to show your address. So if you are working out of your home, for whatever your business may be, you can use your home address and then select don't show, and you can get a Google My Business created. And so having that opportunity and the way that the world is going, I can only imagine that there's going to be some sort of way that you can be found still locally based on your home address, right? Without having to have an actual brick and mortar. But that's to come, and that's very interesting, and like things that everybody's looking out for right now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, one of the things that we see here as well is that there is a specific link actually here for appointments. So cttrial.co.
Yep.
And then we also have products here. So I think traditionally, many professional services businesses are not, I can see they're using Acuity.
Yeah, use Calendly, all of those are, and this is really, the other thing about this really quickly is that it's actually just a link. You can put a link to your website's booking page or contact us page there too. It's not necessarily that you have to do an integration or be high tech and know how to do that. It's literally just putting a link there. So anyone here on this call has the ability to go do that.
Not technical, exactly. Go grab your link and put it in your page along with all the other changes that we're recommending to you. And then the last one, before we sort of move into your site and search in general, products. I mean, legal services, are they products or are they not? It's funny, we have a webinar next week that's just about creating your own DIY legal products, but this is something different. This is actually what Google is saying are products. So we have products listed here for the law firm, and it makes perfect sense to see them displayed in this way, but many people here might be thinking, as I am, what happens when you go and list this product? Like, what happens if you click on this, and how is it beneficial?
Yeah, and so part of optimizing your Google My Business is that they're giving you all these different fields that you can fill in. And for the longest time, products was there, but it was mostly for people who were selling actual things, right? T-shirts and ice cream or a service or something. And we said, well, what would happen if we filled it in with the types of services that they actually offer, right? And so we did it for a few people, and you can change the colors, you can make it branded, you can make it pretty, whatever you want. But what it does is it offers you the opportunity to teach Google what each of these practice areas really are, to give them more keywords. And when you learn more, you actually go to their website. And so you are taking your consumer through a very good user experience, in that if they come to your Google My Business, right, and they want to learn more about what you do, they go to a very specific page that only talks about that particular practice area. Now, if you don't have a site yet that has a page for wrongful death or has a page for dog bites, then it may not be a great user experience to have a product here that says dog bites and then take them to your homepage that talks about everything, right? You want to make sure that you're always taking people to a relevant space because they want to learn more about what they've clicked on. And so this, if you have the setup on your site, if there is a way for you to use any field on the back end of your Google My Business, do it. But make sure you're doing it in a user-friendly way, for sure.
Okay, so you don't need to have any special setting here. If you're an attorney, you will see the option to add products, and you can basically do it yourself. You don't need some product feed or XML or anything like that. You just got it.
Yep, and if you choose not to do that, right, it just wouldn't be there. So you can leave.
You have so much more of that space. Look at how much real estate, so to speak, you get on the entire, I mean, beyond the first page of the search results. You keep scrolling and there's too much for them to show. That's really incredible. And I guess what you also end up doing is that people also search for, those are your competitors, and you want to push them way down to the bottom of the page, right? So that makes a ton of sense. Add as much as you possibly can. So last question here around like the updates and the posts. The photos that you're sharing, what sort of photos are you going to share if you're a law firm other than just the suits, so to speak? I mean, you're not sharing client photos. What if you don't have an office? What could you possibly share?
That's a good question. And it is a little bit of a struggle, because if you are a restaurant, you have people who, your consumers, who are actually taking pictures of their pretty plates and putting it up, right? It's not just,
right.
Yeah, it's not just the owner that's adding them, it's your consumers, which gives you a really big boost there in like all of the content that's being shared. For lawyers, some things that we say though is, if you're going to do community events, right? Take a picture with your booth at the community event, or take a picture with an organization that you've sponsored, that you've had a good relationship with. If you are a solo practitioner, your firm is you, it's your brand. And you know what? People are going to hire people they like and trust, not just look at a name on a building, right? So if you went to your kids' little league and that's something that you support, putting a picture up of you, a story, tell a story of, did you play sports in college?
Personalize it.
Oh my gosh, if you're in the South and you're into college football, put up your Roll Tide stuff, do whatever you're gonna do.
Are you from that town? Are you sponsoring anything? Did you give a community talk? Are you taking a snapshot of us on Zoom right now, right? Like, what are what are you sharing that are your activities that are relevant, basically, that can be captured with a photo?
Yep, absolutely. And it helps. Every little bit helps, right?
Definitely. So, all the little bits, a lot of little bits are also keywords. And we touched on that really briefly when we looked at reviews. So one of the things that crossed my mind when you were showing us those reviews and the tags that are common, workers' comp, respect, patients, doctor, things like that, those are also probably relevant keywords that Google is seeing related to your practice for regular search results as well. what is your approach to a firm maybe that's been around 2, 5, 10 years, and here they are, maybe their search results are a little bit stagnant, or they're wondering, how do I get more juice out of this orange? Where do you start with that process, ranking for the keywords that are already relevant to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I would say work smart, not hard. That's how you guys have gotten where you've gotten to be business owners. And that's what you're always looking at to scale your businesses, regardless of what industry you're in. So first and foremost, what are the people searching who are coming to find you? And that is something you reverse in your brain. So you say, what's my top dollar case? What kind of client do I want to work with, right? And then maybe even looking at your data now. So how did those clients get to me? How did they search for me? Perform that actual search. So if I did injury lawyer, right, and I'm sitting in the area that I want the clients to come from, I'm going to look at these 3 firms that are up on the screen that are ranking. They're obviously doing something right, guys? So don't reinvent the wheel. Go into their websites and look at what they've done. What content have they built out? What kind of keywords are they using on their pages? Just doing a little bit of research into your competitors. At the end of the day, the name of the game with Google is, again, it's a rat race. It's who can be the smartest person, who can provide one more page of content, or that better keyword, or whatever, an extra link, whatever it may be. And so look at what's there right now, figure out how much you need to do, and that's your strategy, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. Is my biggest advice to people who are trying to do it themselves.
Okay, so when it comes to, now they're on your site, are you reinforcing those same keywords? How are you using language to improve conversion? I mean, obviously there's a number of elements on this page that are elements to increase the likelihood of conversion.
Yeah.
We can talk about each of these, but when you first audit a site, maybe like something here, what are you looking for from it first, just a keyword perspective? Like even the term personal injury, are you including keywords like on the homepage, like car crash or car wreck or things like that? Or is that too much too soon? What's your sort of approach to this, and not just for personal injury firms?
Yeah, for a consumer experience, the first and foremost, I think that there's a lot of websites that do it really well. This one has, there needs to be something that jumps out at you in terms of the most important thing to you. And so for them, it may be, saying what location they're in. North Carolina. We service the whole state, not just one state, is what they're telling you, right? So they're like, hey, if you're down in Asheville or you're in Raleigh, like we can help you. And so that's important to them, is to show how wide they cover the state. And that says something really quickly that they're a big firm, right? It may be that you're a small law firm and you want to have something that says your family matters to me, right? You're a family law firm. And that is very nice to see, a one line, or your recovery, it matters, right? So making sure that your header has something that jumps out, whatever the largest words you're putting out there need to be really important to you or to what you care people will think about you, right? First and foremost. Whether you do like a video or that's all up to you. Some people think it's busy. Some people really like it. That just becomes aesthetics, right? There's no real data on that. But here you have some form or way on the top part of above the fold for them to connect with you. So let's say I have seen you in the search result. I've read your result, and that's exactly what I need. I don't need anything else. I don't even talk to anybody. Having, whether that's a live chat that comes up, or it's a contact form that lives right here on the top part of your screen, something has to be there as a call to action that's not too much in your face. But then also make sure that you're putting out the brand that you want. If you think that having all of these different accolades, or you've been featured in the news, is important, and you want to be that brand that stands out, they click on other websites, they're not going to see that those people are an authority and we're on these different publications. Then that's important. You want that above the fold. Right away, I learn a lot about this firm just looking at their site. And so user experience can be that first initial look, but it's also on making sure that you can navigate easily. So whether that's coming down here and seeing, you know, a list of the practice areas, or having it very organized that if I clicked on something here, I would be in the whole section of the site about car accidents specific to my location. I have all these other types of pages and information about it. These pages are also linked within the content if I'm reading it. So make it easy for your consumer to navigate through your website and get from one topic to the next. That makes sense, I would say, is the biggest. And then the other two little things that are actually really big have to do with making sure that people can learn about you. Again, going back to that concept of people work with people they like and trust. Make sure that the about us is going to be something that's going to tell a story about you that you care about. If you can have your testimonials there, that's great, hearing what other people think about you. And then the second is always give more than you take. So resources, making sure to have it very focal where people can get free resources that may help them, or whether it's, you know, what are you doing in the community? How can they get involved with you as a firm outside of just the fact that you are doing, you know, you're litigating different types of cases, whether that's family or PI. So tell the story of yourself, because that's what people are interested in, and make it easy to get there.
This makes a ton of sense to me. So, I mean, in terms of the language, the call to action, what are, professional services or legal clients looking for when it comes to, calling, when it comes to chatting, when it comes to inquiring for more information? What specific, not so much like the actual opportunities to do so, because obviously we know that giving the opportunity to call, text, chat is very important, but the language that's used there, people understanding a free consultation. Do you want to specify the duration of it? Do you want to specify book an appointment online now? What are sort of the best practices to really capture the momentum from someone who's coming from search and say, I know this person isn't, may or may not be a referral. The referrals do search online for validation of reviews and your website still, but let's say it's someone pretty cold. How do you get them to find you and you're the only game in town, and sort of get that consultation on the books?
Yeah. So one, you don't want to be spammy. So you don't want to have a bunch of different, and it distracts them to have too many different contact forms and too many places for them to talk to you.
Nickelodeon website.
Two, you want to be interactive. So maybe thinking about maybe not 5-6 questions that they need to answer because it gets too long. And then it's like, okay, well, they're asking way too much. I don't have time for this anymore. They get, they're saying, no, I don't want to. But trying something interactive where it might be, you ask one question, that's a yes or no, a second one pops up, and maybe just keep it to 2 to 3 questions. Maybe when they feel like they're talking more about the issue already, and then they submit that contact form, it's not so much a cold call when you call them back. Then you can actually have that second touch where you say, hey, I read this, I know what you're looking for. It makes it seem like a much more smooth service and reach in that first touch, right? The other thing is giving people options to fill out more. So instead of it being a long form, for our website, something new that we're trying, we're going to have where you can put your name and your email and request a free report. But you can also tell us a little bit more about yourself, or like request a call if you want. But at the end of the day, you don't want them to feel like they have to do a call, right, in order to get a nice resource, a free resource that you can offer. So if the call to action is 100% you're injured, you need to talk to us, it needs to be very clear that, it's setting an appointment. But if it's all these other aspects of your site where you're giving free resources out and you're getting people to be in your funnel and to remember your brand, then you want to make sure that they don't feel captive to get that infographic or to get the extra helpful free information.
Right. You just offered something and then you pulled it back a little bit.
Yeah. Please stay free. Yeah.
And play this game first, basically.
Yes. Don't play games with your contact forms and your call to actions.
Right, exactly. And one of the things that actually we see, 2 specific things on that, from the perspective of an answering service, is we see actually chat becoming the new form. So you can program those questions you would ask in chat, in your form, into chat. So if you've got 5 questions, hi, what brings you to the site today? And then, you know, what is your first name? What is your last name? What's your email? How do you prefer to be contacted? You know, what's your phone number to directly reach you? How, you know, urgent is your legal matter? And how ready are you? And you can do this in a form or chat or text or any sort of written communication. How ready are you to hire an attorney? And I think, like, you know, that's one of the questions that's not often asked. It could be, how ready are you to, you know, hire a financial advisor or a banker or a real estate agent, right? Like, it doesn't have to just be an attorney. But just by asking that question, or if you're in criminal defense, you have a court date scheduled, et cetera. Maybe even, have you worked with an attorney before? What are the different factors that determine, are you going to take the case? If it's family law, you know, are children involved? Is it a child custody matter? Immigration, similarly, what is it about? Are you just looking for someone to help you fill out forms? You know, there are a number of questions that, you know, for your practice area, for your industry, what you can ask that Nalini is speaking to here, to get at the specific, like the specificity of the questions that help you qualify a lead, and not just have someone who's running through 10 websites filling out their autofill contact information, right?
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily what you want.
Right. And that just strengthens that first touch, like I said, too, by knowing what kind of lead is coming in. What it not only helps you as a business owner prioritize, like, hey, I've got 2 hours left of my time. This one seems like someone who has talked to 3 other lawyers and is really ready to make a decision. They have other people to compare them to.
Right.
I'm the best I know I am. I should talk to them for 45 minutes. Then I've got this other person who said that it's the first time they're reaching out about a potential divorce. And you know that when people are just looking into it, they've got a long road ahead of them. Maybe that's a 15-minute first touch with a second call later.
Well, right, and especially also thinking about the sensitivity of the practice area. You know, there are people who want to speak by phone. There are also people who, you know, if you're back in an office, or you remember when you're in an office and you're going to be in one again potentially, you know, not everyone wants to be overheard talking to an attorney. There's office gossip. Are you giving them the channels to communicate silently with you through chat, through text, through a form on your website? It should be comprehensive enough to sort of be an alternative to a phone call, right? So
Yes.
That's really compelling, to give the opportunity to tell as much of the story as you think is relevant, get enough back to inform, are you at least contacting the right firm? You know, like, you can go on a website chat and say to a personal injury firm, hi, I need a divorce. And if the chat is not very good, they're going to let you go ahead and book a consultation, even though it's a wrong firm. So I would just make sure that your systems are really dialed in. Are you asking questions specifically for your practice area, for your business type? And also using that information to then go back and inform your keywords that you put into the content on your website. So is everyone asking questions about car wrecks, and all over your website you have car accidents? Maybe you should be changing your language. And there are other examples of that where people are asking questions. What we know is that Google doesn't tell you everything that is being searched that ranks
Absolutely.
on the website. We all know, like, what was it? I mean, I'm not going to age myself too badly, but it was maybe 15, 20 years ago that we didn't have so many not provided keywords, and you saw a lot more of the search results that were bringing people to your business website. So as a result, now we have to do everything we can to capture that information. And one, if you're not with a huge advertising budget, which will give you some of them, one is chat, actually. So how do you look through all those chat transcripts and say, what are the common words that are and phrases that are being used that I'm pretty darn sure are the same words that people are using on Google, because they're not going to phrase it differently because now they're on your website. So speaking of that, you know, there are techniques to use that you guys make a lot of websites for lawyers specifically, but professional businesses in general in the service industry. There's sort of a framework that a good website should have, and it's not just keywords. There's certain elements that will show up on Google. We know that your page structure sometimes comes across as a really sort of complex page layout in the search results themselves. We saw that for one of the law firms that you presented. How do you get as much real estate as possible in search results from that page structure, and improve the likelihood that you can rank by just simply creating more pages?
Yeah. So the four fundamentals that I don't even think that I mentioned, which is usually something that we always talk about, are technical, content, link building, and local SEO. And we spent a lot of time on local SEO. It's this whole other animal. What you're talking about, and to be able to take up a lot of space on the search result page, and also to tell Google the information you want to show up there, is all done through technical. So it's a lot of that behind the scenes stuff. And it's coding that Google has come out with. And they've literally said, hey, if you have an award on your About Us page, or if you have a place that you've been published before and you want to tell the Google bot that that's on your website, here's what you copy and paste onto the back end in the coding to teach the bot that. And so by using all of the right kind of coding they give to you, you're teaching them what you want to be shown on the front end. If you have reviews, some people have seen when you've searched for things, you see the 5 stars in the organic search results, and it says, you know, these people have this, and click here for more testimonials. That's all coding. It's 100% all structure and coding. And that's the stuff that's a little bit harder that you can't DIY. And the content comes into play, just like you said. So how can you help yourself take up more space on the search result page by putting up more pages of content? And just like that rat race, it's a matter of making sure that you're teaching Google that you do this particular practice area and that you have more pages of information on that practice area than your competitors. And by doing that structure and showing the Google bot that this page belongs to this page and this page belongs to this page, that's what Google's literally able to say, all right, well, they've got 5 pages of this topic and 7 of this. So all of that technical in the back end really does do a lot of the heavy lifting work in the beginning.
That makes a ton of sense. And you know, let's switch gears for a second, because one of the channels that we know a lot of attorneys and small business owners are really focused on and wondering how much time to spend on, frankly, is social media. So when we look at social media, you know, to transition from a search perspective, like if you're getting a lot of traffic, network referrals from social, is that impacting your rankings, your position on search?
And so there's a couple of things with social, especially with respect to COVID year. One, when you're in a new business, whether that's a law firm or any kind of service business, the low-hanging fruit and the thing you think of when you think digital is social. Oh, I should go make a Facebook, I should make an Instagram, I can advertise, I can talk about what products I have, right? And so as a business owner, you're like, yeah, social's the way to do it. 2, since COVID, everyone has been taken to social, whether that's personal or professional. You've just been on it more, right? And you're like using your opportunity now as that's your networking. You can't go out to the bars and take somebody out for a drink or go out to the golf course, or you can now probably, and it depends on where you are, right? But in the first few months of this quarantine, it was very difficult to do the traditional networking. And so people were using their social for that. And so everybody's eyes have opened to social. And at the end of the day, social is going to be great for networking. It's going to be great for branding, for getting your business, your name, your logo out in front of people to remember. So in case they do need you down the road, they'll remember that nice thing or that funny thing you posted. But when it comes to actually making a difference of you ranking in Google's first page, there is no translation right now. And who knows if that changes next year. But from the past to now, if you have a link from a post you've put up on your Facebook going to your website, that's not the same thing as getting a good backlink from, you know, a .edu site or a news site. If you are posting an organic blog on your Facebook every single day, that's not going to translate to you having an authority and expertise in something as it would if you posted those blogs on your website. So for the actual ranking capabilities, social doesn't help with that, but that doesn't mean there's not all this great value to get out of it long term.
That makes a ton of sense. When it comes to the sort of social engagement though, and converting leads from social, so treating it as its own standalone sort of place to be. Obviously, there's a lot of referrals and recommendations come through. Facebook specifically, you know, LinkedIn is a professional channel if you're a B2B attorney or professional services provider. What are the strategies that help you sort of appear? You know, is it just a matter of boosting posts? Do you need to host your own Facebook Live? How are you showing up and in front of the right audience that is going to keep you in mind, but also maybe start to, you know, pay more attention to you and be ready to be nurtured, to be a client, you know, potentially in areas where maybe there's more of an opportunistic opportunity to work with clients. You know, personal injury is circumstantial, but when it comes to estate, when it comes to trademark,
Immigration,
patents, things like
family,
that,
yeah.
there's opportunistic, you know, legal opportunities that arise as well.
No, absolutely. I would say first that each of the different platforms are their own animal. So LinkedIn has a different algorithm than Twitter does, than Facebook and Instagram are one, right? So those two speak very fluently to one another. So it's really test and measure if you're going to do it on your own. Agencies obviously have a few tips and tricks based on what they've done with other things in the past, but I will say that I know for a fact that Facebook and Instagram are very not friendly to organic. They want you to pay to play. So they want you to choose a specific audience based on those behaviors you just mentioned. You know, maybe for personal injury, anyone can get injured, but when we're talking about immigration, there's very specific behaviors. People are looking for things in different languages. They're looking up different languages. If you're getting a divorce, maybe you've just put up your house for sale. If you're looking for high-end clients, let's say you do business formations, then there's literally a whole audience of people who are considered business owners, or they claim they are self-employed on their taxes. So all of these different types of very niche audience targeting is really important, and that is also very fruitful, but that's all through paid, right? So you can target those things, and Facebook is much more friendly to that. If you just put up an organic post, you're not going to see a lot of people have viewed it. You're not going to see a lot of people that it's reached. It's always, you'll notice Google will, or Facebook will say, hey, boost this post to reach, you know, 400 people. And so it's minimal, it's $5, $10, but they want you to pay to get in front of the audience. Whereas LinkedIn is right now seems very friendly towards organic. So the more, what we have found is the more original content you're posting to make yourself an authority, and not being spammy about it, no links to your website, but just becoming an authority. Google's actually, or LinkedIn's actually showing those posts to a lot of people in your network who could be potential clients, depending on your practice area.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, you know, one thing that we sometimes see as a, you know, sort of multi-step strategy is if you are boosting posts on Facebook, one thing not to miss is to going through and looking at who liked or whatever reaction they had, as long as it's not negative, on that post. And actually you can invite them to like your page. And then you can target them as someone who likes your page. You can target them also as someone who likes the page and their friends, and you rapidly sort of expand your network. There's also the opportunity to make lookalike audiences with your site traffic. So you do sort of piggyback on your organic and maybe even paid search efforts to make sure that you are, if you are building audiences on Facebook, and obviously LinkedIn allows for this too, you know, you sort of track that person around the web. When they visit Facebook, you say, all right, let's show them some content, and others like them content. So for B2B, that can be helpful. If you know your demographic, that can be very helpful, or specific locations. But yeah, one of the things that I always recommend is, like, if you are boosting a post, make sure that you have someone who's looking through all those likes, inviting them to like your page. It's, you know, a freebie bonus for you that you should at least ask them to, and many people by default will say yes to that. So, you know, we've only got a few minutes left here. You know, I think that the last question that I had was around social and these efforts that are not directly leading to conversions necessarily. It's important to have sort of that brand presence. Are you approaching content differently to sort of nurture and stay top of mind? Are you promoting reviews? Do you sort of know you're already preaching to the choir? What sort of approach are you taking there? Are you expecting that they're already fans of yours? Are you thinking that they're maybe even uninitiated? Those are two totally different sides of the spectrum. You know, do they know your brand really, really well, or do they only barely know your brand?
Yeah, and I think that that truly depends on what kind of list have you made. So first, is this a business page that you are sending out information from, or is this your personal page that you've turned into business, right? So if it's from your personal Facebook and you've turned that into business over COVID year, and you've got all these folks who are your fans already, right? They've met you before, they trust you, whatever it may be, then those folks, there is a different kind of, is a great point, there is a different kind of information you want to send to them. And so first and foremost, to people who don't know you, you want to grab their attention. But a lot of times they don't have a lot of attention span. So you're not going to put a 1-minute video up there. You maybe don't even do videos. You don't want to put like, you know, here's my sales, I have this offer right now. You want to provide free information to them. Once you get them into your funnel because they've clicked on that free information, that's when you start telling them about your brand. So segmenting the people into 2 different wheelhouses and really paying attention to auditing your list and seeing who your followers are. If they are people that know you already, then yes, make your information be specific to that. If they're newbies, then make sure that you are every few posts telling a little bit about yourself. So that's a great point. And then one of the other things that you mentioned earlier, I loved your tip on making sure that you are utilized. If you're going to run a campaign or you're going to do anything, always
pay attention to it.
All the juice, right? One thing that I did see that's interesting, and this is helpful for every business, yours included, right? A lot of the CRMs, so whether it's Salesforce or Zoho or anything that you use, can be integrated with your Facebook and with your social profiles, and actually can be sequences. So if somebody likes anything that you've posted, they can be put into a funnel that can be then put into your newsletter list. So it's interesting to check out the settings on the CRMs that you use, because all of that work you're doing, you can automate it.
I will also write a little note in here for all the attendees that Phantom Builder is another thing that I found really recently. It's extremely affordable. I don't know if you know about it, Nalini.
No.
I just discovered it. It basically is a white hat scrape that allows you to pull down followers of maybe similar businesses, basically scales your outreach. So you can say, oh, all the yellow page results for this, or all the LinkedIn profiles that look like this. You already have to have maybe Sales Navigator access to LinkedIn if you're going to do a query like that, but it allows you to not copy and paste and click into each individual profile to get that information. And then you can say, okay, these are the people who I really want to reach out to. I want to see if they overlap with my Facebook audience, or every time someone follows me on Twitter, follow them back. So it can be an action in that same platform. It can be, you know, any sort of like simple interaction or collection of data that would take you paying someone on Upwork or someone, you know, on staff who's more expensive to do that work. And it's a really cool automation tool. So I encourage people to check that out if you're, you know, really actively engaging on social. And it seems, as I mentioned, you know, very white hat to me, or else I wouldn't recommend it. But it just sort of like scales your outreach and your data collection for target audiences. So why not?
No, actually, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I will share the recording with everyone. I really appreciate you being here, Nalini. I wanted to give you an opportunity to mention, you know, how do people follow up with you?
Yeah.
And I think there's some new services that you're actually offering for more solo and small firms as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So our robust product is to get you to rank with the big boys, and it is thousands of dollars a month, depending on, you know, what your practice area is and what the competition looks like. But we have also, for the past year and a half, introduced a product which is just a website restructure, so that you are getting that coding and that technical in the back end. But for the one-offs and for the really determined DIY lawyers, this is a great product because it allows you to DIY the content, DIY the link building and the local, have us be your technical folks. You have a dedicated account manager, and we even give you guides on how to write the content, and then we help you optimize it and publish it. So it's a really cool do-it-yourself kind of situation where the hard part is what we handle.
Yeah, the booster seat, the refresh, the makeover, and then the manual to keep going on that upward path. Everyone, so appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. If you're not already working with Smith.ai, you can benefit from BluShark Digital. You'll get $100 off your first month with the code BluShark Digital. And we will follow up with a recording. So if you didn't catch all of this, you'll get the full opportunity to watch the video later on and to share it with your friends and peers. So thank you, Nalini.
And I can just drop my my email and my phone number. Guys, feel free to text or call if you have questions or anything in there.
You're so wonderful. Thank you, Nalini. Yeah, really appreciate everyone, and feel free to reach out to us. Nalini will put her information. I think it's just Nalini at BluSharkDigital.com, BLU sharkdigital.com, and then I am Maddy, M-A-D-D-Y, at Smith.ai. And Sarah is asking also, Nalini, for your social handles so she can follow you and keep up to date with all the latest updates and not just the one-time webinar. So for sure, and I know that Nalini does have a social presence herself, and so does BluShark. So we will include those, and thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and talk to you soon.
Maddy, thank you so much for your time and for having me on here today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. All right, take care, everyone.